Hello, everybody.
Hi, Patty. We hear you loud and clear.
Hi. So, again, I was asked to do another meeting in the evening to see if that would help some people that have specific needs that can't be met during the week. And I'm here to do that. So, we'll get tonight started. I don't have anything in particular in the law that I'm watching, freaking out about, concerned about. I mean, don't get me wrong, everything that's going on in Devil's Cauldron is continuing to go on in the Devil's Cauldron. But as far as other areas and seeing things, I haven't heard of anything happening other than the security deposit limits that will be implemented next year. That is the last big change that I've heard. Please understand that January 1st is coming, and yeah, we want to make sure what we're watching on our ballots come November when it's time to vote, because January 1st is when those types of laws change. It'll be interesting to see what gets on the ballot this year. Weinstein's at it again, unfortunately, and that is causing quite the hiccup in life in general, if you will. He grew up on in a rent controlled property, I believe, in New York. So he says how that helped his family considerably, and he's all about it. I have my own questions in regards to his motives and such, but I'll leave my opinions to myself. That's Patty being cautious. Anybody have anything right out of the gate that we want to discuss, we want to talk about? I see you, G Jones. I hope everybody's doing good tonight. It's a Wednesday, so we're that much closer to Friday, which always makes it just a little bit easier to tolerate. Anybody have anything that they want to talk about, discuss? Otherwise, I'm going to go right into what I want to talk to you guys about. And what I want to talk to you about probably isn't what you would anticipate coming out of my mouth tonight. I cannot reiterate to you enough, if you are managing property for profit, meaning you own a management company, you are managing property for other people, and they are hiring you to be the new property manager, watch yourself. And I can't encourage it enough. There are specific questions that you need to be asking the owner. Very specific questions, and it's to protect you and your best interest and the interest of the rest of your staff. So I want you to be extremely cautious, especially in this day and age. Remember one thing. People don't call us because everything is sunshine and roses in their life. They call us because they have a problem. Sometimes those problems are a lot worse than you think. So you need to listen to the owner when they're explaining to you. And I know sometimes it sounds repetitive and you tend to tune it out and just capture the part that you're trying to grab a hold of. You need to listen to all of it. Because if that tenant in the property is a big problem and you're now stepping on as the new sheriff in town, you need to be prepared. At first meeting, never travel in one, always travel in twos. Wait, what did Patty just say? If you're going to the property the first time to meet a new tenant, you want to make sure you're traveling in twos. It's a safety thing. It's a safety issue. There's a lot of things that we can do to help protect ourselves, especially with the uncertainty of the world we live in. Okay? I always used a system at the office. If I had a problem at a property, I called the office first. And what I would do is rattle off the address until the person on the other end of the phone told me okay, because now they knew where I was. Okay? And then I'd tell them what was going on as much as I could so that they could get a description and what have you to law enforcement. Why did Patty do that? Why didn't she just call 911 herself? Because a lot of times when you're out as a leasing agent and you're showing various properties, you may not recall the address of where you are, but your staff knows exactly where you went. They have the file. They have photos of what the property looks like. They can contact the owner. So it's just, you have to build a defense mechanism or a plan of action in the event of a crisis. I remember specifically, I was at a property one day and I was showing it. And it was a gentleman who was older than I was. I would say probably about 15 years older than I was. And he was a little odd, and I'll explain, and you guys will all go, oh yeah, that's weird, okay? Watch. So I show him the property, and I have a standard that I do for my own safety. Whenever I go into a property, I always stop in the kitchen, put my clipboard in the kitchen or in an area where I have two forms of an exit. Two, where I can see to the slider or get out the front door. Whatever it is, I position myself between the two exits. So in the event of a who knows what, I at least have one way I can go, okay? So it's just the way my brain works, and what I do when I go to a property is I position myself in the home, and if I'm alone with one person, and if I don't feel comfortable with them, or if it's a male or whatever, I just say, I'll be right here. Go ahead and show yourself around. I'll be right here if you have any questions. Sometimes I will even eliminate myself from the equation and say, hey, I have an emergency at another property. So I'm going to go ahead and open the door, and I'm going to take a phone call outside. When you're done looking around, just let me know. I'll answer any questions you may have. It's a real easy way to take yourself out of a closed environment, okay? Talking out loud now. So I called the office because the gentleman gave me an odd vibe. And I've always said, if you feel like something's off, pay attention to that. I call it my a-hole alarm. Just saying, okay? Sometimes my a-hole alarm goes off, but this wasn't, it was just odd. Something was very odd. And I had stepped outside and said I needed to call the office. And I was telling them where I was and what was going on. And I was telling them, I'm not afraid, just something's really odd about this person. He hasn't given me any vibes that I'm in any kind of danger or made me feel weird. He is odd. So my whole big thing is he is odd. Him. It's not me. It's just something's off, something's not right. So they say, okay, Patty, you want me to stay on the phone with you? And I was like, no, I'm okay. I'm going to get off the phone, but if I have a problem, I'll text you. So I did that, and I texted away, but not right away. See, the gentleman was still walking through the house, and he comes back over to me, and he stands there, and I'm asking him, did you have any other questions? Is there anything I can answer for you? Would you like an application? It's just standard, are you wasting my time or not kind of questions. And he goes, and I'm really short, for those of you that have never met me. I'm 4'8". Okay, I am really short. And the gentleman, who was average height, I'd say, he was about 6 feet, I guess. I don't know. He squats down to my size and gets in my face and puts his finger in front of me and has, I have one more thing I need to go look at. And I said, okay. And I did take a step backwards because it was just really odd. Why would somebody do that? I mean, he got right in where he was eye level with me with his finger up this way, not pointing at me, this way. I have one more thing I want to go look at. I'll be right back. He scurried off, and I thought that was odd. And I texted the office, okay, yeah, something's off here. Okay, something is very off here. And I'm okay, but something's off here. I think that's what I texted him. And he comes back and he goes, okay, I answered my own question. And again, he's at my eye level. And I'm like, what is with this guy? Why does he keep crouching down 2 feet to be eye to eye with me? You know, this is odd, really odd. So I hand him an application and I leave. The next day he shows up in my office and I happen to be there. And I say, oh, hello. And he goes, yes, I'm turning in my application. The first thing I do is glance to make sure that it's complete. But if you think that's all I'm looking at, you're crazy. I immediately start to chuckle. And he says, is there a problem? And I said, no, not at all. And he said, okay, but what do you find so funny? I said, not funny, just understandable now. And he goes, what do you mean? And I said, you're a 3rd grade teacher, yes? And he goes, yes. I said, I'm about the average size of a 3rd grade student, yes? He goes, yeah, why? What did I do? I'm like, you talked to a student, that's all. He's all, oh, I had no idea. I'm like, it's fine, not a problem. But when you understand the why behind it, sometimes it becomes not so weird, right? Sometimes you need to pay attention to those odd things that are going on. Sometimes later you'll get the explanation. It may not be a safety issue. It may just be very odd. Like I said, he didn't give me creeper vibes. He gave me weirdo vibes. But when you see that he's a teacher and I'm the size of a student, it makes more sense, right? All I'm asking you to do, and you're hearing it everywhere, is be aware of your surroundings. But be aware of other surroundings that you're putting yourself in. When you go to your vacant house, walk through it before anybody else gets there. Make sure nobody else is in it. Okay? Squatting is going to become a problem. So, with that all said, all I'm saying, you guys, is please watch your signs that sometimes are on the wall. Sometimes they're explainable and we don't need to panic. Example. Hello. It makes sense. But for other things, I want you to be aware of your surroundings. I want you to be aware of what's going on. You need to know, somebody needs to know where you are, when you're supposed to be back. Just talking out loud. A lot of times people hold IDs while they take them on a tour of a property. That used to be a big thing. Now it could be considered discriminatory because you know what they look like. If you take a picture of their ID, it could be a bigger problem. So you want to avoid some of these things, but what I'm asking you to do is have a plan B, make sure you know where your exits are, and don't put yourself in a position you don't want to be in. If you have a client that is bringing you a problem property and you are signing it on, hire a law firm to serve the notice. Don't go out there. Hello? If it's that big of a problem, don't expose yourself. Okay? It's not necessary. You're going to see what that house looks like just fine after the sheriff lockout. But don't put yourself in a position where you could be in harm's way. Now that I've spoken my piece and said what I wanted to say, let me see what we're all chatting about tonight. PRC came out and didn't find any moisture, considered any particles in the tenant's dresser to be dust, not necessarily mold. Provided contact info of AirTech Environmental. Have you heard of them? Their reviews aren't any good. No. If that's who they're recommending, they're doing it for a reason. Just saying. Okay? Reviews to AirTech seem to suggest that they're good for charging insurance companies. They don't seem to be on the owner's side, but reviews could be biased. Exactly. Tenant called at 5 and wants to know what the next steps are since no moisture was found and no mold findings were mentioned. I'm not sure how best to proceed. I don't want to pay to test the tenant's dresser furniture. I don't believe you do. Okay? Let me explain. What you can tell her is after I've had someone come out and they and tell her what the findings were. I wouldn't go into detail about dust in her dresser, but you could say it doesn't appear to be. Tell her what they said. They're the professional. Tell them what they said. Could be dust, or maybe, and hear me out, if she had something that wasn't her humidifier sitting on there, because they've said it's not mold, maybe something heavy sat on there or fell on it or something, and maybe those dresser particles are breaking down and they're falling on the clothing. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a scientist. But there could be a different explanation. I'd let her know what they have to say. Air purifier. Okay. But apparently, there doesn't seem to be an issue in the house according to the professional in the industry. So at this point, that seems to be dust particles, not mold particles. And I'd let her know that. And the next step at this point is I would ask, what step would you like me to take? Do you want me to have a cleaning crew come in there? I mean, and G. Jones, do not quote the first thing that comes out of my mouth, because yes, I am a female and sometimes I act on emotions and sometimes I am sarcastic. But my thought is, what do you want me to do now? Come in and clean it? I would let her know those appear to be dust particles, not mold particles. And at this point, I think that the investigation is done. Why? Okay. I understand she wants it tested for mold, but there's no evidence of mold at this time. So I don't know. And that's how I would explain it. If she wants to pay to have items sent to a lab, she's more than welcome to do so. But the professional in the industry has informed you that there's no mold particles in visual sight. I'm choosing my words carefully for a reason. Mold is a very tricky, touchy subject. It is a F-bomb in this industry. Okay? F-bomb. But if the professional PRC is saying there's no moisture and mold has to have moisture, then it sounds like it's a cleanliness issue. Yeah, I said it. And those are dust particles. And it could be from the interior of her dresser breaking down. Especially if it's like particle board dresser and not real wood. It could just be crumbling like that cork dust stuff that falls when it deteriorates, which it does over time. The glue gives out, or whatever reason it fails to exist anymore. And I'm blonde. I am blonde, and I am calling this out. Okay? Tell her she can pay to have whatever test done that she would like to have done at her expense, because the professional in the industry has informed you that what is there is not mold particles. There is no moisture. Test to have her dresser tested is $300. You're missing my point entirely, sir. Entirely. You want me to try a different approach? Why on God's green earth, and I'm talking out loud to you, okay? Why on God's green earth would you pay to have someone's personal belongings tested? Who's to say she didn't buy that dresser used somewhere and it has mold spores in it already? You get what I'm saying? Oh, so if she wants to do it at her own expense, I would tell her to go right ahead. But the key in this whole equation is there was no moisture in the house. Mold needs moisture. Did they put that in writing? Just asking. If they put that in writing, I'm going to tell you, if they put that in writing that the moisture level in the house was within limits of the exterior temperature of the wind, no joke, that matters. Interior and exterior moisture matters. And if it's rainy, that matters. Okay, mold's no joke. So I'm just saying, if they put in writing, she can do whatever she'd like to have done at her expense. I am not concerned at all whatsoever. First and foremost, that's her personal belonging that seems to be the problem. We don't know how it was introduced to the unit. So we want to put that right in the category of personal belongings. I will say this though, so please pay attention to me. If she brought in mold spores in a dresser and it blooms from there, and yes, I said bloom, I didn't say blossom. Mold spores bloom and float to other areas. If that's the case, and then you get a mold infestation with no moisture, I'm just saying, might want to think about that. Where did that dresser come from? It's just a thought. Just a thought. But yeah, I wouldn't be paying to have my tenants' personal belongings tested. That's not a me problem. And if she pays to have it tested and there's nothing wrong, that's an expensive oops. Okay. Hang on. Yep, correct. I'm with you. Yes, it's in writing. Had it emailed, took pictures of the recording device used to test the moisture. That's why I love PRC. They are awesome. I also learned that an air purifier could cause health issues. Yeah, how pure, how clean is that filter in there? Oh, you mean it could capture viruses and bad particles and get plugged up with stuff and then it can't push it out, but when it does, it's just pushing out the bad stuff because it's not filtering it anymore? And it acts like a little plethora of viruses? I'm sorry. But yeah, I'm glad you learned something today. I try to do that every day. Today I learned something, but it has nothing to do with legal aspects or housing, so we're not going to talk about it. I am human, remember? All right. Anybody have anything else that they want to talk about other than the mold lady? And I'm sorry, all my tenants I refer to as women and all of my landlords I refer to as men. It's just the way my brain works. Okay? Sorry. Nobody has anything they want to discuss or talk about other than the mold person? That's awesome news. Let me see who's in here and what I could ask them about what's going on with their stuff. Arlene, how have you been?
I'm doing well, thanks, Patty. I saw today that it looks like the unincorporated area city council today decided that they're only going to allow a 4% rent increase. But I guess we're still waiting for Larso. I know we talked about this last time, but I think Larso is still at this point 7% for February at this point.
At this point, they have made an announcement that they are most likely going to extend till August. You heard it too. And the reason why they want to extend the rent freeze till August, and they won't tell us until January 30th, you watch, or January 31st, depending on what day of the week it is. You wait till the Friday before the last day they can say anything, or they will speak. That's usually the process I see. And they will extend the rent freeze, in my opinion, based on what we're hearing already and the talk that's going on. And I'll tell you why. And Arlene, it's going to make you throw up in your mouth. Sorry. I hope you haven't had dinner yet. I'm just saying. The reason they want to extend it is so they can reconfigure how they calculate the annual percentage. Because right now, for Larso, they're saying 3% is too high. Okay, you hear her laughing right there? That's why they want to extend it, is so they can come up with a new and improved way to calculate how rent increases will be done in where? The city of Los Angeles, where they've had the most strict restrictions for the past 30 years. Can I tell you a secret? And Arlene will agree with me. Right now, they're not the worst.
Mm-hmm.
City of Pasadena now has relocation fees. If you want your house back at no fault of the tenant, is $32,000. $32,000 because you need to move back into your own house. LARSO is only $23,000. Sorry, just saying. Okay. With that being said, what's it going to go to now that Pasadena's is up to 32? Do we think they're still going to be the most restrictive? I got an idea. They're going to say, if the tenants live there, and I'm just thinking out loud, okay, I haven't heard any of this. This is Patty's hypothesis, okay? There's no method here, okay? My assumption, if you will, is that they're going to give it a cap. And if I would think of how they'd cap it, it's going to be on the length of the tenancy, right? Makes the most sense. Tenant that lives there the least amount of time has a bigger increase. Tenant that lives there longer has the smaller increase, right? So maybe they'll say, if the tenants live there for less than 3 years, they can get a 3% increase. If the tenants live there between 3 and 5 years, they get a 2% increase. If they've lived there for 6 to 8 years, they get a 1.5% increase. And if they've lived there for 10 years or longer, it's, or if 10 years, then they would get 0.5%. And then if they've lived there for 20 years, they only get 0.25% of an increase. That's just, how is it going to be more restrictive than just limited to the CPI? And come on, in all fairness of LA City and their owners in that city, here's what I have to say to you. It's time to speak up and stand up, because enough's enough. They haven't been able to do a rent increase since March of 2020. They haven't been able to do a rent increase in LA City since March of 2020. We can all agree that it's been more than 3 years. It will be officially almost 4 years once the moratorium expires, but it's going to get extended until August, until they figure out that just the flat CPI is too high. It's at 7% right now. That's based on the economy. Okay? We wouldn't get 7% if the economy was in the toilet. It would be 2%. Because they're only allowed to raise whatever the CPI is. Ouch. And they won't let them because the CPI has been so high for the past 3 years because of the economy? It's garbage. Garbage, I tell you. And you watch, mark my words, they are wrestling right now, trying to figure out a way to make it more restrictive. That's my guess, because 7% is too high. But these owners haven't had an increase now in 4 years, and 7% is too high. If they just did 3% each year, it'd be more than that by now.
Mm-hmm.
If they just did 2% each year, it'd be more than that by now. So they've put the city of Los Angeles in quite the predicament. Just saying. Because what are landlords going to do? And let's face it, what are we going to do, Arlene, when we get told we can only do a 1% increase, but we haven't been able to increase in the past 4 years?
Or our units off the market.
What are right? So,
Yeah.
so
And-
it
yeah.
cause, reaction, action, effect. It all has an answer. Everything they do is such, as my friend's grandmother would say, adios mío. And I'm probably saying that wrong, but I'm just saying it's just everything they do causes more of a problem for them, not less of a problem.
Well, this Prop 19 is going to make it worse because people are not going to be able to afford these property taxes, and they're going to end up evicting people, pulling them off the markets, and they're going to tear down the units.
And build what?
Yeah.
And build what?
Not affordable housing, that's for sure.
Can you say New York City?
Yep.
You know that one little park that goes right through the whole middle of I think it's Central Park, and it's like this strip of trees? It's scary. It's scary what's going on in LA because it sets the standard for everywhere else. And why I'm talking about this is because most of these cities that now have this bullshit that all the rest of us are dealing with, sorry, I said it, I know, but it's garbage. Each individual city, and there's 13 of them, Cudahy, Inglewood, Pasadena, Pomona. You want me to keep going, or you know what I'm talking about? They all have their own little rent registry, B&B bureaucracy and BS, and their own rules, their own regulations, their own relocation fees. I mean, Pomona, if you want your house back, it's 2 months rent plus $1,000 is their relocation fees. I mean, each of these cities has their own rules. I want to rip my hair out trying to keep track of it all because it's a nightmare. Okay, I'm just saying. And the reality is, a lot of them have become more restrictive than the example, LARSO. So now what does LARSO do? Because RSO is now spread like cancer throughout the unincorporated parts of LA City. All these individual cities are coming up with their own stuff. What's the city of Los Angeles going to do? Get more restrictive? Just saying, talking out loud. Not trying to ruin anybody's night, but pay attention to what's going on because and now even in the unincorporated areas of LA County, they are restricting how much you can raise rent. So let's talk about that really quick, Arlene. And it would be the cities that are affected by LARSO now, which would be Woodland Hills, San Pedro, Wilmington, those cities, correct? Sherman Oaks, I think.
Yeah, 4% is what they said today.
Okay, thank you. 4% maximum in those areas. That's insane. 4%. 4% in San Pedro. The people that this is going to affect the most is the little mom and pop landlord that didn't keep up with rent increases in LARSO when they could do an increase. You know, those rents that are like $600, $400, $800. When are they going to get to market? Oh, they can't get to market. Don't forget that part. Don't forget that part. Should I have tenant use tenant's own company to test tenant's dresser or use the company suggested by TRC? G. Jones? If you pay to have that tenant's dresser tested, you're a fool. I'm being funny. And I know you're asking me a genuine question. You tell the tenant that they can hire whomever they want to, and she can pay for it. She can hire whoever she wants to because it's going to be at her expense. And if she comes back and tells you there's mold in that dresser, you're going to let me know. I like you. What I'm thinking about doing is having tenant pay to test the tenant's own dresser. I buy a cheap mold test kit from Lowe's and Home Depot and see what it says. Don't have tenant's company test my unit, just tenant's dresser. Your unit has already been assessed by a licensed professional. I'm trying. I'm really trying. And I know you're just trying to appease the tenant. Let the tenant know a licensed professional has advised you that there's no level of moisture there and no obvious mold spores. The tenant is more than welcome to pay for whatever testing she seems necessary. That's my verbiage. Got it? That's what I would go with. Solid answer right there, okay? Not the first thing that flew out of my mouth, but that thing flew out of my mouth. After an assessment from your company that you chose, and now you know why I say I trust them. And there's other people here that have used PRC before, I know. I think Arlene had them come out and do something, or somebody had them come out.
I did. Yes.
You did? And did you, good experience?
Excellent experience. Came right out.
Good.
Did testing. There was nothing of concern, and saved me $10,000 because that's what the retrofit people wanted to do. And I said, no, thank you. They're great. No, they were great.
Mr. Jones hears you crystal clear now. I told you guys, I go to their office and help with their staff in training on what a property manager wants them to do and not to do. So I train their staff on what a property manager expects when they go to a property and they're dealing with a tenant, and what they need to be quiet about, what they can speak about, and who they need to be talking to, and that person only. So it's something that I do to help them so they understand. It helps them retain more business, because we've all heard the horror stories of the jerk or the idiot that told my tenant there was whatever the issue is, or the guy that said blah 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 to my tenant, or whatever. I actually had a workman make a pass at a tenant at a property. He didn't know that she was not interested in his dangly bits. She was I don't even know the proper word to use. Not interested in men in any way, shape, or form. There we go. And I'll say that just because I don't want to be offensive toward anyone. That's not my goal. But I thought it was rather humorous myself. He was swinging on the wrong side of the fence. Okay, I'll be quiet now. I got stories for days, you guys. Don't get me started. Just tenant heard guy say a testing company could come out. So tenant wants a testing company to come out and test. Wonderful. Right. But remember, they didn't see anything there. So what he's saying is, I don't see anything. Nothing's giving me any signs, symptoms, or identifying process that there's any mold here. In other words, I don't visually see any spores. I don't smell anything that smells damp, meaning sometimes, you guys know, I don't have to tell you, mold on bread stinks, okay? On vegetables too, and you all know what a rotten potato smells like, because we've all had one in our kitchen at one point or another in our life. So with that said, we know the smell it comes with moisture. They didn't smell, they didn't see, and they didn't find any moisture on the moisture reading. Mold needs moisture to grow. Just like fire needs fuel, mold needs moisture. Okay. So with that said, I would go with the company I hired didn't detect any signs or symptoms of anything having mold. Therefore, I see no reason to do any testing. There's no moisture found. That's the key right there. There's no moisture. And they are suggesting a testing company, just so you know, to cover their own asset. Hope that makes sense. Because just because they don't see it, they don't smell it, they don't taste it, you know what I mean? It's not on their meter of having any moisture. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It's just they don't see it, they don't smell it, and there's no moisture there. There could be. Highly unlikely, but there could be. I'd ask her when the last time she changed the filter in her HEPA filter, her air filter, whatever filter she has running. I'd just ask her nicely, when's the last time you cleaned the machine and replaced the filter? Because you got to do that a lot. You guys want to know a funny story? It's bad funny. It's so bad funny. I bought a house. The first house I ever bought. At the time I'm turning red telling you guys, so you know this is going to be stupid funny, okay? I'm embarrassed. Okay, I buy my very first house, and it's a big house, and my whole family's living in it. My kids, and I don't mean that like I have a herd, but my mom and my dad, they were elderly, so it was time to move in family so we could help take care of them and my kids. So we lived in this 6-bedroom house. So I buy this house, we move in, we're not even living there 1 month. I don't even think the first mortgage payment came yet. And the air conditioner stops working. Yes, I got a home warranty, but as a regional manager, I knew quite a bit, and I mean quite a bit, of handyman, workmen, things of that nature. So I called my AC, heat and AC company, and they came out, and I will never live this down, ever. Do you know what was wrong and why my AC wasn't working? I needed to change the filter. The filter had probably not been changed, they said, since they bought the house. And the filter was so plugged that the AC unit wouldn't even do anything. It wouldn't spit out any air. It wouldn't do nothing. Okay? So every year for Christmas, they always brought me a pack of AC filters so that I could do the whole changing the filter thing 4 times a year. And they gave me garbage about it every year after that. They still tease me, Patty, did you change your air filter? Yeah, I do. I do all the time now. I didn't know. Hey, in my defense, just so you guys know, my area of expertise happens to be toilets and water heaters, okay? I'm about this good with a garbage disposal. I know where the reset button is and how to unjam it with a broomstick. But toilets and water heaters, I know all about piezo switches and heating elements and thermocouplers, and oh yeah, more than I should. All right, what else you got? What is the best number to reach you to do a follow-up update be in order? If you need to call me, just call me at Fastavict. I'm there Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. Sometimes 8:30 to 5:30, depending on the traffic. All right, anybody else have anything they want to talk about? Otherwise, I will end this for tonight. My dog is being obnoxious. That's okay. Anybody have anything they want to talk about? Everybody, please. Uh-oh, wait, here's something from David. What you got, David? Identification of residential dust using microscopy. Microscopy? Microscopy. Scopy? Scopy. Okay. I'm not going to try to pronounce it anymore. I'm going to move past that. I got to tell my brain this sometimes. LCS Laboratories offers identification in the components of dust from residential properties. Composition of residential dust often reflects the unique environment of your home. Yep, absolutely. Dust allows you to identify possible source of contamination in this test. Hey, there you go. Look at us. Teamwork, everybody. I love it. I love it. Teamwork. That's the part of this group that I love, that we can all get together and chit chat about different things, and somebody else is like, oh, I know about this. Oh, I had them help me. Oh, let me tell you about my experience. That's what I love about this, is that we have that ability to share. That's most important, especially in these times. Sometimes most of us feel like we're alone. I'm alone with my rental house. A gentleman I talked to today was extremely afraid of just serving his tenant a 3-day notice. She keeps telling him that if you serve me any paperwork, I'll sue you in court. She's just threatened him so badly that he's operating his business from a place of fear instead of a place of confidence. And that's always a recipe for disaster. If you ever find that you are in a place of fear with your investment property, please reach out to me, reach out to Hilda, reach out to Arlene, reach out to any one of us, okay? We are all here to help you as a group and share our experiences and our knowledge and what not to do, what not to say. But you're okay on this one. You've had one of the best companies in the industry as far as I'm concerned, because they're actually honest. And they went out there and they've told you what they found. They didn't try to upsell you. They didn't try to do a bunch of testing. But this other company is very tenant friendly, and you can see how that side of the fence plays out. Like Arlene said, she called PRC and they saved her $10,000. I mean, when you guys call me and you're panicking, oh, this just happened and this happened, I'm going to tell you who I think you should call. And it's not who I think you should call. Let me rephrase that. It's who I would call if that was happening to me. You take that or leave it. You take that or leave it. But that's what I do. I give you what I would do if that was happening to me.
You've never steered me wrong, Patty.
I wouldn't, because you know what? It's really hard to look in the mirror and go, you suck. It really is. So with that said, yeah, I appreciate all of you. And like I said, I couldn't do this without you guys. Anybody have anything else before I end this for tonight? Nobody? All right, you guys. I will be back, I think on Tuesday. If you're not already signed up, make sure you do. It's going to be a very interesting talk at AGLA. We are talking about great ideas that just don't work anymore. We are talking about, and I don't mean to panic you guys, but you need to pay attention to this stuff. We're talking about pet rent, additional occupant fees, storage fees, parking fees, late rents, additional occupant fees, and there's something else that's just not coming to my mind, but we're talking about all those things that allow us to collect extra funds here and there, right? Oh, a month-to-month fee. That's the other thing we're talking about. And why they're not good ideas, and why you need to be careful and not implement those at your property, because it could affect you in a way that's not good. Okay, so make sure you guys get on for that on Tuesday with AGLA. And then I'll be back Wednesday at noon next week for our Wednesdays with Widget. You guys have a great evening and we'll all chat soon, I'm sure. Thank you guys. If you need anything, hunt me down. You know how to find me. Bye, everybody.